doing an inspection on a Kia Sorento today. It's nice if you had a lift at home, but most people don't, so you can jack it up, but it will apply. Even though this tire is new, but I'm looking to see if it's worn evenly going across. That's important, because if it was wearing on the inside more smooth than the outside, we could have a camber problem. Or if it's undulating like it is, you know, hill and gully is what we call it in Jamaica. You know, you might have a problem with the shocks not working good. So I'm looking at the tire. These tires are new. The tires up front are a little older, so we'll look at that here shortly. But these tires look good. Boom. This one over here, matching. Everything look good. This tire is even to that tire over there. All right, so we're good to go. Let me see what else we're looking at now. Now, since we're here with the brake caliper, right, I look in through this opening in here, and I take a peek at the brake caliper, and I can see that the inboard pad, the pad closest out to here, the inboard pad is a little low. Not low enough to fail inspection, but it is low enough. So I'll bring it to his attention so that he's aware of that. And while I'm here, I am also looking at, looking at the spring, looking at the rubber here, make sure everything's good. Definitely looking at the brake line. So when I'm looking at the brake line now, I'm looking to see if it is frayed, and you can kind of see right here when I push on it. I'm not going to push on it too hard because I don't want to break anything, but it's still good, but it has a little age on it, right? So I'm looking at the brake line, and looking at the brake line, I'm looking to see, make sure it's not leaking, no form of moisture. Everything under here looks dry, so that's good. So I make sure that it's not leaking, make sure it's not rubbing up or anything, coming in contact with anything else. Everything looks fine here. All right, and this same wheel now, I'm looking at the shock. So I'm looking to make sure that the shock is dry, because if it wasn't dry, it means that the shock will be leaking and you'd see the moisture flowing all the way down to here. So the shock looks good. I am looking at the bushing that is under here, and it looks good. This vehicle doesn't do much off-roading. This is just a commuter vehicle. All right, so we're doing that, looking at that. Now, what else I'm looking at? Looking at this ball joint right here. I'm looking at this bushing right here. Everything looks good. Now, when I'm looking at this bushing here, I get my pry bar and I pry between here. Let me get it. I put it between here, and then I pry against it like so. Pry like so. And what I'm looking for is right here. I'm looking to see if this is coming in contact with this mounting point. But if it was, there'd be like a little shiny spot right here where it's coming in contact with. So I know that's not the case, but I still check it, because sometimes the bushing looks good, but when you put some side pressure on it, like so, you'll see that this whole thing goes and then that's bad, right? So I do that, and here's another one here. This one looks tight. It's dusty on both sides, so I know it's not moving, right? It's supposed to have some kind of flex and give in it. So if you see it moving, don't think it is bad, right? And then an overall look of what's going on here, I see that there's nothing wet or hanging or anything like that going on here. Here's another bushing. So this is the lower control arm. There's going to be a ball, usually there's a ball joint here, but they have a bushing here, so that works. And then they have a bushing here. This is an eccentric. You can see the eccentric right here. Eccentric mean egg-shaped. You see the eccentric there, and they use this in alignment. You loosen this bolt and you can turn it, and then when you turn it, because of the eccentric, it pushes this out or pulls it in, and pushing it out and pushing in will adjust the camber, right? What else are we looking for on this wheel right here? And everything that we look for on this side, we are going to look for it on the other side as well, right? Everything looks decent under here. Here's the fuel tank. We'll get to that shortly. I look at the exhaust, but we'll get to that shortly. Let us just do everything in pairs. Looking, are we seeing that? Be tight. Lower control arm, this is it. All right, bushing here. Looking at the brake caliper, I peek in through there, and I notice that the brake pad is also a little bit low, not low enough to fail inspection, but low enough to mention that maybe in another 2-3 months, probably need to get done. This line here, this is the ABS, the wheel speed sensor for that side. Each wheel has one, right? It's not coming into contact with anything. I look at the shock is dry. It's not leaking. So that's good. Here's another bushing here for the, and now I'm pushing on it. You see how tight that is? See that? Boom. So that good. Here's another bushing here, right there. I'm gonna push on it. Woo. Forward from here, so. Tight, really tight, good. If this bushing was bad, you would see it move a lot more than that, right? Ball joint here. Boot is not torn, no grease or anything is forwarding out of it. Boom, that's what's going on there. All right, while we're under here, we can take a look at the spear. See the spear right there? A lot of people neglect the spear, right? When they push on it, it is, look at that. See that? That's soft. But no, these are the best part now with the spear. So with this situation now, I'm going to put some air into the spear because this spear probably hasn't had any air put in it for years. Looks like it has never even been used. You see that? So it look like. See that? Boom. So with this now, I won't let this go. I would lower the wheel down and put some air in it and put it back up for him. But the sweetest part now is all these spears, they never mount them with the valve stem pointing down. It's always to the top, so it makes it difficult. So, you know, you have the temptation of like, man, let the next guy do it. All right, but we don't do that. So boom, looking at the exhaust now. I am looking for rust or decay or holes. We don't want no carbon monoxide poisoning, so I'm looking for that. No signs of it. This is not in the rust belt, so we don't have much problem with rust and stuff. So I'm just looking at the exhaust here. All the way along, everything looks good. If you have an exhaust leak, over time you're gonna get a lot of black, dirty, sooty water escaping. So you'd see it on the pipe, but as you can see here, it's just dry. So we're just moving along. I'm just looking at the mounting point. This is where it usually fails, where there's a weld point, usually fails there, right? And there's nothing going on there. So I'm going on this side, nice and dry. As I said, we're not in the rust belt, so we don't have crazy undercar rust situations going on. Boom. So we're going on there, all right? So we look good with the exhaust. All right, let us move back. All right, we were talking about the fuel tank. Now, the thing with gasoline is, if it's leaking, you're going to know. You're going to smell it and you're going to see it. You're going to see a wet mark somewhere. But as you're looking on this tank is dry. You see? Dry. All right? So now, notice that the tank, they call this a saddlebag tank. You have a deep portion over here, and then these vehicles come four-wheel drive. So if this was four-wheel drive, it would have a drive shaft going through here. So that's why they put the little tunnel. So the gas tank humps over and is on this side. Yeah. So the gas tank humps over and comes on this side. Yes. Yeah. So they call it a saddlebag. So a part of your tank is over there, and then a part of your tank is over here. If there was any leaks, you'd smell it or you'll see something. Yes. This component now, this is what you call a charcoal canister. This is where you get your evap code leaks when this plastic and stuff cracks and it leaks and all that. Just a little side note. Nothing has impacted it. So we're moving up front now. Talk about the tires, right? The alignment on this vehicle is in good shape. If you notice, it is even wear across. See that? Even wear across. If the alignment was off, it would be worn down more on this side or worn down more on this side. If it was overinflated, then the middle beads would be low and the outer beads would be higher. And if it is underinflated, like if they don't keep checking the air pressure, then the outer beads will be lower and the middle bead will be higher, right? So the tire look good, and it tells me that the alignment is good, and this person is probably doing their rotations. CV axle. So we got CV boots here, and these boots have grease in them, and this is rubber, and over time they will leak. And when they leak, you will know because this thing spins, so it would sling grease all over the place. But as you can notice on here and the components around it, it's not leaking. And if it was leaking, you would know, because all this stuff would be oily and greasy, right? So that is good. I took a look at the brake pads, but we'll take the wheels off and take a look at the brake pads. But we took a look at the brake pads, and the brake pads are good up front. They don't look bad at all up front, right? Here is where the brake pads, I peek through here and I notice how far the backing pad is from the rotor. And then the rotor is this little shiny part right there. That little shiny part, right? That's where the rotor is, right? So I look to see what the distance from here to the rotor is, and that's how it gives me a rough idea if the pads are almost done or not. But to be thorough, pull the wheel off and we take a closer look. So look at the CV boot as well. You see it? It is in good shape right here. Everything here is dry and clean. Everything around here is dry and clean. So I know that this is not leaking. Now, not because it's not leaking, they can still go bad in there and click. So just bear that in mind. All right, so the engine now, you can get an idea what's going on there. See all of that wet stuff, messy stuff? Right, let me take a closer look. Boom, what's going on here? What's going on here? So you see it, wet, oily on the engine. So you're looking under here, and then here's something I want to show you now. You see all that grease that is there? There is a CV boot, the other half of the boot. You see that? Remember now, this is one end of the boot right there, and it's connected to that end right there, and you see how greasy it is? So this boot is leaking, and when it leaks, notice all the grease and stuff that's there. So by the look of things, you can tell that the oil is not originated from the lowest point, it is originating from higher up. So we have to look at the valve cover. Look at that. Look at that. So that's the water pump. That's there. And you see it's covered in oil, and above it, oil is cascading down from above it. You see there? So it's easy. So it's very easy to misdiagnose if you don't track where the oil is forwarding from. So this is the oil filter. Another thing I notice is, see, it has a little leak that is on there. Probably not tight enough, but I also noticed that there's like a little tiny drip of coolant forwarding from that hose right there. So nothing major, just something I noticed, right? All right. Now you have the ball joint right there. You have the control arm bushing right here. All right, let me see if we can take a look at the control arm bushing. All right, so the control arm bushing is there. You see that? See that? See those little tears and cracks in it? It does not necessarily mean it's bad. It's just old, but you see it has some age on it, right? Let me see what this one looks like. This one is matching. Looks very similar to the one that we were just looking at. Notice that some of the oil leak is starting to get onto the control arm. When it starts getting onto that bushing, it's game over for that bushing. That rubber is going to be ate up. So this is the oil pan that we're looking at. When you're changing the oil, this is the drain plug that you pull. Here we talk about motor mounts and transmission mounts. This is the transmission mount back here. When it goes bad, when you hit the gas, it goes clunk, because this piece moves up and this stays in place. Goes clunk. I'm going to show you how to check if this is bad or good, or if this is bad or good. So this is the outer tie rod end. This is the inner tie rod end. They call this the rack boot or the bellows boot, and it is connected to the rack and pinion, which is this component right here. This connects to your steering wheel, and the rack and pinion goes across. This is the body of it. It has hydraulic lines going to it because the power steering pump sends pressurized fluid to make the steering wheel soft. Then it stretches over to the next side, and here's the bellows boot. This is the inner tie rod end. This is the outer tie rod end. That's the ball joint for it right here. This is a jam nut. When you're adjusting toe for an alignment purposes, you break this jam nut loose and you turn this. And when you turn it, it pulls this in or pushes it out, depending on how the threads are, left hand or right hand thread. So this is dry as well. If the rack was leaking, this would be moist because fluid would leak into it and eventually start leaking out of it. So that is good as well. Right? So we don't have much leaks going on here, but we do have some, and we're going to track them down and see what's up. So let's lower this vehicle down. I'll show you how to shake the wheel to check the ball joint and check the tie rod ends, and then we go from there. To check the tie rods, you've set your hands at 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. And you're going to do this. Not this. Right? Something I feel right there. Probably just a steering wheel turning. Yeah. So you set your hand 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and you do like this. You put pressure to get it to move ever so slightly, but not too soft. You know, you have to put some pressure into it. So it's like this. It's a feel thing. You're putting pressure on it, but you're not putting enough pressure to turn the wheel, because you'll miss the play. So you feel it, and you're not supposed to feel any play. It's supposed to be zero. When it's bad, you're gonna feel it do like there's like a real sloppy spot in it, and that's bad. For the ball joint, some vehicles have upper and lower ball joints. So you put your hand at 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock, and you push with the top hand, you pull, and vice versa. You push and pull. So you're going, and you're checking for any play. This is a McPherson strut setup, so it only has one ball joint at the base, and you have the McPherson strut now supporting it from the top. Some vehicles don't have a McPherson strut, which is a strut and a spring together as one. They have an upper A-arm and a lower A-arm, and they use a ball joint at the top and at the lower, and then use a spring setup. So not every vehicle has an upper ball joint. They all have a lower ball joint though. Somebody go and challenge it. Well, not technically. Yeah, as far as I know. Okay? All right. So I'm feeling it. It's tight. Tight and tight. All right, boom. I will do the same thing for the other side. Let me go and check it. It's good. Time to look under the hood now. So let me get my light. And at first glance, I can see that the valve cover is leaking. See? Valve cover is leaking, right? And you see all of that moisture that's there. All right? You see all that moisture that's there all the way around, right? It's leaking. Let's see if we can get this off. Right. Judging by the undisturbed dust on here, this thing has received a good service now. It's been running, and they have not been interrupting it at all. It's been running, it's been working. But you can see that the valve cover, see how moist it is, so there's oil leak, and then the engine is tilt back. So any kind of moisture or anything is going to run to the back and run down the back of the engine. Well, they call it the back, but towards the firewall onto the ground. So that's where we see most of the moisture, right? And then the belt, he wanted me to look at the belt, right? See how shiny and smooth it is? I will look to see if it's cracked, because when the belts are worn, they show signs of cracking, difficult to see, but you can see down here still. See the belt? Belt looks good. I don't see any cracks on it. Usually when they're going bad, you'll see a lot of cracks and stuff on it. But it doesn't look too bad, right? But definitely, the valve cover gasket is leaking. and we are going to address that. I think that's going to fix the whole problem with all of the wetness and the leaking, you know, because look on this side right here. You see that? It's actually running oil down the back of the engine. See all that oil that's right there? This is a motor mount. Motor mount right here. So we have a motor mount there. We know we have a motor mount in the back right there, transmission mount. There would be one straight down here on the subframe. We didn't take a look at it when we were doing that, but it's right there. And there is one probably under the battery on that side right there. So now, in this inspection now, we would also check the air filter and see what's going on. Some air filters are easy to check. This one don't look too bad. Not too bad. Let me see. Usually you would pull like that. You know what I mean? But this one here looks like it might give you a little peek into, you know what I mean? And I'm pulling back the veil. We as technicians, we tend to be a little bit lazy, you know? Doing it the hard way sometimes for no reason. Oh, look at that. Nice and clean. Yeah. But it's a part of the job. You just do the work the way you're supposed to do and check it out. So we determined that we need valve cover gasket. We're going to talk to him about the belt. The only thing suspect right now is the brake pads. The ones in the front look fat. We're going to pull the wheel off on that one back there and see what's going on. Take a look at what's going on with the pads now. This is where you look from. And you look in there. So this is the backing pad, the metal piece where it's done. This piece, then this is what you use up. So this is the brake pad itself, and then this is the brake rotor. So we have that remaining. So it's getting low, but it's not done yet. And if you want to know, this is the caliper piston back here behind this boot, which pushes it into the rotor. So let me turn the rotor by hand. You can see what I'm talking about. This, see? That's the rotor. As you drive down the road, that turns. So that turns. So you see what I'm talking about. So metal backing pad, then this is the pad material. So it's getting a little bit low. It's not done yet, but it's getting a little bit low. So that was the inboard pad. Now look at the outboard pad. And you see down here, so you have the metal backing material, then you have the pad material itself, then you have the rotor, right? It's a little bit thicker on this side than the inside, but nothing too crazy to talk about. So you see the brakes, they are a little bit low, but not done. So I will inform him and let him make the decision on that one. Check out some of my other videos right there, and thank you for watching. Have a nice day, bless. Yeah.